Right, like a previous speaker said, capitalism is now in severe crisis, and it's going to get even worse crisis. Someone predicted there will be 4 million unemployed in Britain over the next 2 years. What we've got to do is we've got to take over the workplaces, we've got to occupy, and we've got to go onto the streets, as previous speakers said. That's what we've got to do. The anarchist movement has shown a remarkable unity today, and that unity must grow. We must continue to fight together. We must continue to wage united struggle against the class enemy.
We must grow together.
We must grow together. We must march together. That's all I've got to say.
Yeah. Who's great?
Anyone else? Come on.
For over 25 years, the modern anarchist movement has made a start. Now we've got to carry on so we can move together and make a fucking change to this rotten system. Victory to us all!
Okay, now look, just because some of us have got big mouths, right, I don't want to fucking monopolise this. As soon as anybody else wants to come up and speak, just give me the touch and they can come up and speak, and that's it. This is an open platform. I'd like to say this. About 6 months ago, the state of the world looked pretty bad anyway. Food riots in at least 30 different countries. The gap between the rich and the poor getting wider and wider. On the worldwide basis, war. The rise of Islamic fundamentalism and Christian fundamentalism in the USA, for example. Turmoil, civil war, the Congo, Pakistan. The whole world is turning in on itself and it's destroying itself. Plus, of course, the eco-disaster. That about the very existence of the planet is threatened now. Rampant capitalism. The main thing is the gap between the rich and the poor. You've got them over here in Belgravia, and you've got people over there sleeping in the parks and dossing over there on the traffic islands. That's what it's coming down to. In this country, unfortunately, there hasn't been much resistance on the streets, but that is coming to an end, and it's coming to an end very quickly. Again, I'm not talking about Wednesday, but let's get out there on Wednesday. Let's show them let's show how many of us that there are, and how many dissatisfied people that they are. I'm not expecting a few hundred, I'm expecting thousands to be there in the city. What we do, I know not. It all depends on the police reaction, I know not. We're not going there to make real aggravation. We're going there to cause a little bit of trouble, but we're not going there to make real aggravation. But if real aggravation is put our way, I'm quite sure that we will respond. But what I'd like to say is this, that the whole world seems to be in total turmoil anyway. But now, over the last 6 months, with the credit crunch, with all the banks collapsing, it's all up for grabs now. It really is the beginning of the end, as we said on our poster. The beginning of the end. The beginning of the end of the system. There are no alternatives. Gordon Brown, Obama, Putin, whoever they are, the rest of them, they can sit around at the Excel Centre going like that as much as they like. They can issue these completely meaningless statements that mean absolutely nothing. These people are a complete divide with the majority of the population. The way they went to war, for example, nobody supported the war. Nobody, apart from the media and maybe a few arms manufacturers. But they wouldn't listen. But we're not protesting against the war anymore. We're not protesting about one particular thing. We're not even protesting. We realise that now, as I said, is the beginning of the end. They have no solutions. They say, and these are their figures, this is what the government was saying, they are expecting 100,000 people in this country a month to be made redundant, to lose their jobs. 100,000. So over a period of 1 year, that's 1 million. Over a period of 2 years, that's 2 million. We've already got 2 million unemployed. We will have 4 million unemployed in 2 years' time. And that's what they're telling us. They're telling us that. 4 million unemployed. It's not going to be like the 70s or the 80s. Some of the 70s and 80s are really good. We had resistance. We were out on the streets of Brixton. where we're out on the streets, mass trade unions and so on, mass strikes, a winter of discontent. But we're now entering completely different, unknown territory, a space where none of us have ever been before. And it's not only in this country, it's all over the fucking world. We don't want to lag behind the world, but it is all over the world. It's not going to kick off here and just in France and Switzerland. It's going to kick off in every single country in the world, all at the same time, between a year and 2 years' time, in my estimation, and in their estimation as well. Now, all right, we got 4 million unemployed. This is what we've got to do. Not as anarchists, but as people living here on this planet, in this city, on this island, right? This is what we've got to do. And this is what I expect to happen. Whether we do it or not is completely irrelevant. I'd like us to be there, really pitching in at the front at the beginning. But there are going to be millions of people that cannot pay their rent. There are going to be millions of people that can no longer afford their mortgage. Millions of people with absolutely no future whatsoever. People with no money. People with nothing. People that bought into the system and the system has slapped them in the face. And the rage and the anger is only verbal. It's not physical. We haven't seen barricades on the streets today. We won't see barricades for a while, except perhaps on Wednesday. But that's up to that lot over there, what they do. We haven't seen that yet, and I don't expect to see it yet, but it may happen much sooner than we think. Because if you look back at the past, the Brixton riots, the winter of discontent, nobody really expected that, but it came. And the resistance will come as well. I see the marches coming in. The resistance will come in as well. You see, what we've got to do is this. We've got to support people. If people that can't pay their mortgages and can't pay their rent, they've got to squat their own flats. There's 1 million empty properties in the UK, some of them in a state of complete disrepair, worse than pigsties. But there are hundreds of thousands of empty luxury flats in this country, in this very city, hundreds of thousands. This is what we should be squatting. We should be squatting the luxury flats, not the hovels that they've already gutted with Cytex on the windows. We should be squatting the luxury flats. But it's not only anarchists that are going to be squatting. I'd like to see, and it will happen, there's going to be thousands and thousands of ordinary working class people and families that will have no choice but to squat. So that's what's going to happen. Hundreds of thousands of people are going to squat. There's empty properties all down the high street. All these Woolworths are closed, all these businesses. We should seize them. We have no social space. They're closing down the pubs. When we meet on the streets and fraternise on the streets, even with a few cans, we get moved on, we get brutalised, we get bullied by the police, right? So what we've got to do is create our own space, and I expect this to be happening anyway. Whether we decide to do it or not is completely irrelevant. I expect people to be squatting Woolworths. Tenants associations tenants have got nowhere to meet. You have insurgency on the estates. They should seize empty property. We should seize empty property not only to live, but to give out our ideas, to set up social centres. There's nothing to be scared of there. They've got them all over Europe. We want to see dozens and dozens of small social centres and large social centres in every single city and every single town in this country. And that is the future that hopefully is going to happen. And we want resistance on the streets. When I say resistance on the streets, that's exactly what I mean. If we're picked around, we should fight back. But don't fight the police until you can beat them. When they're ready for you, don't fight them. When they're not ready for you, give them a surprise.
Hey! Hey!